I didn't crash that ballroom to make a headline. I walked in because a small hand was shaking inside mine, and every adult in the room seemed more afraid of a wet coat than a scared child. If you saw a barefoot pregnant woman push through silk and tuxedos with a muddy boy on her hip, what would you think? Kidnapper or savior? Be honest. Do you think that's fair? My name is Nia, and I'm going to tell you what happened the night a storm blew the truth out of hiding. It starts with a train, a black SUV, and a boy who tried not to cry where strangers could see. It ends with a family name I never asked for and a question I still can't stop asking. What do we owe each other when the lights go out? 8 hours before the chandelier went dark, I woke up under an overpass with my lower back cussing me out and a baby turning slow somersaults just under my ribs. Cardboard, damp breath, fogging hands numb the kind of morning that makes you measure time by kicks and coffee smells you can't afford. I counted coins, bought a plain bagel from the vendor, who always pretended the extra napkin was an accident, and sat on a bench where the pigeons strutted around like tiny security guards. That's when I heard it. The wet, quiet sound a kid makes trying to swallow tears. He was small and too clean for this place, hoodie, unscuffed new backpack with a lightning bolt that said somebody loved him enough to pick it out. He stood facing the tiled wall like he thought the wall might hug him back. I kept my voice soft. "Hey, little man, you okay?" He didn't answer, just tucked into himself tighter. "You lost." A tiny nod, almost too small to see. I set the bagel down and crouched one palm on my aching back. "I'm Nia." A beat, then a whisper, like he was checking if the name still belonged to him. "Malik. Where's your grown-up?" "Gone." A man said his daddy sent him. He grabbed his hand. He ran. My skin went cold. I looked toward the street. A black SUV idled like a shadow with a motor too slick, too dark. Someone on a phone pretending not to scan the crowd while scanning everything. If it were you, what would you have done? Call out and risk it. Walk away and hope it wasn't what it looked like. I chose him. "Okay." I told Malik, "See that sign for the station office? We're going there. We'll call your daddy from their phone. Stay beside me. Don't let go." He nodded his hand, sneaking to the edge of my coat, like he wasn't sure he had permission to hold on. We moved. The man by the SUV turned, started our way, shoes slapping tile with the confidence of somebody paid to be dangerous. My belly tightened. The baby rolled like she could feel the speed. "Almost there," I said. "Almost. Hey!" The shout cracked through the station like a thrown bottle. Malik flinched. I shifted my body so the man couldn't see him. The train screamed in wind, shoved us. The man grabbed the backpack strap. It snapped, and I yanked Malik into my chest so hard my palms burned. We fell together, hurting but alive, the train pulling a hurricane behind it. A station worker ran over a blur of questions. "Office," I gasped. "Call his father." We tried. Power flickered and died like the grid needed a nap. The backup coughed and failed. The phone sat there like expensive bricks. "Nearest power is the Carver Hotel," she said. "2 blocks big, charity thing, they never lose power." Carver. Malik said it like a secret he'd heard in a different life. 2 blocks in the rain might as well be 20, but 20 is just 2 10 times. We marched. Rain does not care who you are. It got my coat, my hair, my socks. It got inside my bones until my teeth clicked like loose keys. I wrapped my coat around the boy, and my belly checked behind us twice, saw that SUV once slow, patient hunting. We ducked into a bodega, pretended to compare. Candy waited for the rain to speak louder than the engine, then moved. By the time we reached the hotel, the carpet smelled like money and lemon polish, and my feet were raw enough that the fancy floor felt like a lie. I told the concierge everything quick, simple. He looked at me, at my coat, at the mud on a rich boy's cheek, then passed me at the swirling party like maybe a big tip would arrive if he kept things pretty. "We'll call," he said, hand already signaling security. Now I said, "Please." Security started reciting protocol like it was a prayer that would save us. "He's scared," I said, and that was the only credential I had. Then the ballroom doors opened, and the world turned into glass and faces and perfume. Phones lifted, pearls clutched, whispers rose, the way heat rises from summer asphalt. A banner said, "Carver Foundation," in gold letters. You could probably feel through the paper. A tall man with salt and pepper hair stepped forward, tuxedo sharp enough to cut. He stopped when he saw Malik. I watched a crack run through his face, the kind you see when a man who has controlled absolutely everything meets the one thing he can't control: love. "Malik," he breathed. Security flowed in front of him like a tide. "Ma'am, put the child down, hands where we can see them." I tucked Malik closer. "He's hurt," I said. "He didn't want to get in a car with strangers." "You touched him," a woman in emerald demanded fingers on pearls, like she'd caught something from the air. "Who are you?" On a screen in the corner, a photo of a smiling kid in a school uniform flashed next to "missing reward," and a number so big it made me dizzy. A violin scraped a wrong note, then silence snapped tight. And then the lights went out. The chandelier went from 1,000 tiny suns to a huge shadow. Blue emergency strips breathed to life. The whole room looked underwater. "Hands up," an officer shouted. Cameras kept flashing like lightning trapped indoors. I kissed the mud on the boy's temple and whispered, "It's okay, even if I didn't believe it." "Don't leave," he said into the damp of my coat. The father took a half step, palms open, moving like I was a wild deer in traffic. "She brought him back," he said. "At least let her speak." That's when a voice cut the room in half. "Touch her, and you'll answer to me." A woman stepped through the crowd like a tide parting itself. Gold head wrap, storm-colored wrap, sweeping the floor posture that said "Queen," even if you didn't know her name. The name moved through the blue light, soft and heavy. Naomi Carver. She didn't look at the cameras or the guests or even her son. She looked at me. "Release her," she said, and it sounded like a command God would take seriously. The cuffs lowered, and then the outside storm came inside. A black SUV crushed the hotel doors. Glass fell like glittering rain. A man got out, too calm for the chaos he made. "Gun up. Hand over the boy." Malik made a sound I will never forget. A sound that pulled me up from every place I had curled small to survive and turned me into a wall. I grabbed the closest thing, a silver tray, and I threw it at the gunman's arm. He fired the bullet, buried itself in the ceiling. People screamed, security surged, and Naomi shouted one word that sounded like a blessing and an order: "Run." We crashed through a corridor, water pouring from sprinklers, now alarms howling so no one could pretend this was civilized. Men in black suits appeared like bad dreams, guns, steady eyes, dead. Naomi stepped between them and us. "You will not touch my grandson," she said. The tallest man sneered. "Ladies, step aside." And that's the moment the fire alarm exploded overhead and gave me the second I needed. Now. We slid through a service corridor into the rain shoes, skidding on tile, my feet cutting on glass I wouldn't feel until later. Outside, another SUV blocked our path, headlights carving the storm into knives. The man who got out was tall, precise smile like a thin scar. He didn't just look at Malik. He looked at me like he recognized me from a story I didn't know I was in. "It's been a long time, Naya," he said. My heart fell through the wet concrete. Mr. Carver and 2 guards burst behind us, Naomi right after, with the kind of courage that makes other people brave. "Step away from my grandson," Mr. Carver roared. The man didn't blink. "Your heir," he said then to me. "Tell him, Naya, tell him the truth before I do." "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, "because that was true and also because you don't tell wolves you're afraid." He smiled. "He belongs to you more than he belongs to them." Yeah, that happened. Back upstairs, a paramedic named Mensah guided me onto a sofa, a doctor gelled my belly, and a tiny heartbeat filled the room steady and proud. Malik sat so close that our knees touched a biscuit in his hand he held like a medal. Naomi laid an indigo-wrapped book on the table like a living thing. Inside was a young Naomi laughing into a camera while she held a baby wrapped in patterned cloth. "Zara, my moon," the neat handwriting read. Naomi's voice lowered into the past. "Before the money, before the city learned our name, I loved a man who loved money more than breath. When I left, a fire took our street. In the smoke, someone took my child." She turned a page, a sketch of a crescent-shaped scar on a tiny wrist. My hand moved before I decided to move it. I turned my left wrist palm up. A pale crescent curved just above my pulse, the exact same shape. The room forgot to breathe. "I had a mother," I said soft, because I needed her name in this room too. Edna Daniels. She found me in a church, raised me on diner coffee and Sunday songs, made me strong. She passed 2 winters ago. "May God rest her," Naomi said, and I believed she meant it. Mr. Carver sat like a man trying to rearrange the furniture inside his chest while the house was still on fire. "If this is true," he started. Elena, the COO, was already on the phone. "Cheek swab rush test 1 hour. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind." The door opened hard. 2 officers and a woman with a clipboard who weaponized procedure. "Emergency order," she announced. "We're taking the suspect into custody for interference with a minor." Malik's biscuit hit the rug, and he wrapped his arms around my waist like he'd known me forever. "She saved me," he cried. "This is my hotel and my son," Mr. Carver snapped. "Chain of custody must be clean," she fired back. Then Naomi stepped between us and the cuffs. "You walk through me to lay a hand on her." The senior officer's eyes said he didn't want this problem, but his training said, "Keep going." I felt the baby kick quick and sure. "I'll go," I said, "but Malik comes with me until someone who loves him says otherwise." "That won't be necessary," the clipboard woman started to say, and then the window shattered. A masked man rolled through the broken glass like he'd practiced the route 100 times. He dropped one officer with an elbow, folded the second, with a knee kept moving toward me, and the boy like we were his to take. Elena swung a lamp like a softball pro. It clipped his shoulder. He hissed, and Naomi drew a pistol from under her wrap. Not another step. He drew a blade. I grabbed the only thing near me, that same clipboard that had tried to write me into a villain, and I threw it at his wrist. He flinched. Naomi fired. Blood streaked his sleeve, and he sprang back out the window into the storm he came from. The room hummed with aftershock. Naomi holstered the gun. "They're not after Malik," she said. "They're after you." "Me? Why me?" "Because you exist," she answered, "and some men build empires on the things they stole and the people they erased. You are proof they didn't erase everything." Power to the block went out like someone flipped a city-sized switch. The door shuddered with fists and voices claiming to be ours. "Don't open," Naomi ordered. "Uniforms can be a costume too." Elena scanned the window. "Scaffolding 5 floors down, we can rappel, not safe, safer than waiting." I stared at the rope Mr. Carver was knotting from a velvet curtain, like he had always known this trick and hoped never to use it. "I'm pregnant," I said. "What if I fall?" Naomi pressed a palm against my belly, gentle and fierce. "Then remember this. Our blood has never fallen without rising again. You are my blood." The door splintered. We went out the window. I've done hard things, but that rope, wet, rough, shaking under the weight of a child clamped to my neck and a baby kicking warnings inside me, that rope took every prayer I had. Halfway down, the rope jerked. I looked up and met the eyes of the man from the SUV bandage on his shoulder, where Naomi's bullet had loved him. Silas. He leaned out of the broken window like a spider glove tight around the rope. "Going somewhere, little niece," he said. The word niece cut the storm in half. He shook the rope, then drew a blade. "You can't run from blood," he said. "You belong to me as much as she did." Naomi's gun cracked again. Metal sparked. He flinched, but not before sawing deep. Fibers popped under my hands. Malik screamed into my shoulder. I wrapped myself around him. We fell. We hit a tarp that tore and held at the same time. The scaffolding groaned, and then Mr. Carver's hands were on mine, Elena shouting orders like a metronome for panic. We clattered down metal like a song you sing only once in your life. Pavement, floodlights, medics. I put my knees on the ground because the ground is the only thing that forgives you instantly. Naomi came down the stairs like a woman who had fought a war and won the right to sit if she wanted. "You saved him," she told me. "You saved yourself. Blood or not, that makes you mine." They swabbed my cheek, and an hour stretched like a bridge over cold water. Reporters pressed against barricades, microphones hungry. The technician returned with a folder like it contained weather. Naomi opened it with a steady hand. She read once, twice, lifted her eyes to me, and they were full. "It's true," she said, voice quiet and huge. "You are my blood. You are Zara's child." Mr. Carver went to his knees, like maybe gravity changed its mind. "That makes you my niece," he said, and then he looked at Malik like the boy he almost lost had just grown a new kind of family right in front of him. Malik leaned into me and whispered, "I knew you were my mama. You know what I mean. Some things you just feel." Silas slipped the perimeter that night. Men like him know every crack in every system, mostly because they made some of those cracks. But the net tightened, names lit up on screens. Elena sent lawyers like arrows, and the city remembered how to be awake. Days later, I sat in a garden drinking tea that tasted like kindness, watching Malik kick a ball across new grass, while the baby tapped a rhythm under my hand. Naomi sat beside me, quiet, steady. "Your life will never be the same," she said. I watched Malik laugh, watched the light find his face without asking permission. "Neither will his," I said. "But before we wrap this like a fairy tale, let me tell you the part that's harder. Money can buy generators and bodyguards, but it can't teach a concierge to see a human being through a wet coat. A clipboard can carry the law, but it can't hold the whole truth about a woman running into danger for a child who isn't hers. Blood can claim you, but family has to choose you day after day, especially when the cameras go home. Do you think that's fair? What does fair even mean when the starting lines aren't in the same neighborhood? Here's the twist that keeps me honest. I didn't become worthy because a lab test connected me to a dynasty. I was worthy at the train station when I said, 'Stay beside me, don't let go.' Would you have stepped into that ballroom knowing what they'd assume? Would you have thrown a serving tray at a gun? Would you have climbed through rain with a child on your back and a baby under your heart? If it were you, what would you have done? So tell me what you think. Was it fate or 100 tiny choices that brought me to Malik that night? Did child welfare protect a child or miss the point that love sometimes shows up barefoot and bleeding? Can power be clean when it's built on secrets? And who do we become when the lights go out and nobody is watching? I don't have thread-tight answers. I have a crescent scar that stopped being a wound and started being a map, a heartbeat that kept its promise, a grandmother's voice that could make a room safer by telling the truth, and a boy who still reaches for my hand, even when we cross a street with the light on our side. If this story moved you, if it made you mad or hopeful or both, drop your take in the comments. Argue with me, agree with me, tell me where you're watching from. Tell me what you would have done in the station, in the ballroom, on that rope, in the rain. And stick around, because the next chapter walks into a boardroom with the truth and asks for a chair. Hit like, hit, subscribe, share this with someone who needs to believe people still choose each other in the dark. I'm Nia. I was homeless, I was pregnant. I saved a boy because he was scared, and I walked into a storm to bring him home. Now I'm learning what home means when the doors finally open.